You know, when a couple of guys are angry at each other and they're yelling and they're arguing, sooner or later, one of them is going to say, F you. And the other guy gets mad and he goes, oh, yeah, well, F you too. This is brilliant dialogue. Why is F you considered an insult? It's the most exotic, exquisite experience you can have.
Hi, everybody. It's the Unreliable Narrator podcast, and we got a special guest with us. We got comic book creator Jon Dexter, who's got a couple comic books that we're going to talk about and get the skinny on what they are, where you can find them, and what they're all about. So, Jon, if you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, sorry, I stepped on you. My name's Jon Dexter. I created the comic book Alpha Dogs, which is Alpha Dogs 3 catch-up tiers 1 and 2 are on Kickstarter currently. Just finished up my other Kickstarter called Dime Store Detective. It was a noir / supernatural mystery. It got funded too, but that just ended a few weeks ago. Then, because I'm glutton for punishment, I released Alpha Dogs issue 3 2 weeks later. It just worked out that way, and we're funded now. I've got 2 weeks left, and it's going pretty good. It's kind of on track like some of the other ones, but yeah, issue 2 came out back in March, and issue 1 came out about a year ago now. So. But if you missed out on issue 1 and 2, you can buy them as add-ons for the Kickstarter. So if you like dogs, if you like original stories, it's unlike anything you've read on the shelves right now, Alpha Dogs. So yeah, it's doing okay.
So I guess my next question would be, geez, you know what? I sent you a list of questions here. Now I can't remember what they are. I have to open up my phone and be a rude guy.
I forgot the question you asked me.
Anyway, how did you find your way into the world of creating comics?
So I had grown up wanting to be a screenwriter for many, many years, and I had not got a whole lot of success. I mean, like the millions of people that want to be screenwriters, you know, it's all a little bit one step forward, 2 steps back. Back in 2014 and 15, I was the semi-finalist for the Academy Awards. They put on the screenplay contest, and if you win, you have a chance of getting your screenplay into a movie. There's been a few movies that have been made from the winners. Heel of the Bee, and there's been like 6 of them now. And I was in the top 180 out of 7,400 2 years in a row. So I got a lot of exposure that way, but like 99.9% of screenplays, it fell through the cracks. So I decided to make a comic book out of my next idea, and it didn't do very good. It was my first one, my first foray, and it failed. So about 6 years later, I decided to create this new idea that I had, which actually was somebody else's idea. A friend of mine he had just watched the Westminster Dog Show, and he called me up and he says, like, Jon, I've got a great idea for your next comic book. You should write one about dogs with superpowers. And I thought, boy, that is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. And it just sat there for a while, but then it just started to take form and permeate. And the biggest influence, how it really started, the wheels turning, is I have a Pitbull mix named Pig. He's a terrific dog. And in the town we lived in Missouri, they were outlawing pit bulls. So we had the choice to either move or keep our dog. And of course, we moved. So that was the genesis of the creation of the main character, Buck. So Buck is this pit bull with the ability to heal from most any wound. He's smart enough to understand human speak, and he has a heightened strength ability. But he's got a great heart, and he's a terrific dog, and he's feared by the public because of his breed and his size. It's kind of a la Casper the Friendly Ghost, the scary ghost, but actually helps people. And that was kind of the creation of Buck. And then I created the other dogs that are going to be part of the series. we start out with Buck, him and his owner, and this older pit bull who shares the same abilities as Buck have been on the run from these mercenaries called BlackRock, who want to get their hands on the dogs because of their abilities. So after years and years of running and hiding, they finally settle down in this South Carolina farm, and seemingly everything's okay. They're finally at peace, and then their owner Ina, who Buck thinks the world of, brings home her new boyfriend, and she divulges the secret of the dog's abilities to him, which something she's never done, but she's lived an incredibly lonely life in seclusion with her dogs, and she's manipulated by him. But little does she know that he already knows of the dog's abilities and has created this formula that once in possession of the dog's blood, he can create his own dogs with incredible powers. So as the series goes along, in issue 2, he's able to inject the formula into his own dog, who becomes this big hulking dog who's one of the main antagonists of the series. And we pick up on issue 3 when Ina is kind of putting the pieces together that Salem isn't this terrific guy who she thought, because she did hand over her dog's blood to him under the guise that Salem's dog was dying of cancer and wanted to try to inject the blood of his serum, which he created. He's this very ingenious bioengineer at this company called NextGen, who is a real therapy. It's called CAR T therapy, where you take cancer patients' blood, healthy cells, you extract some of their healthy cells, weaponize them, then re-inject them into the patient, and those cells seek out and destroy the cancer cells. Well, Salem, my character, has created kind of this 2.0 formula with these super cells, which, as the story goes along, he used the dog's blood to create his own dogs with powers for his revenge plot. I've said a mouthful, haven't I?
You got a great comic book story there. You got heroes, you got villains, you got all the people in between. It sounds great. I can't wait to read a copy of it. So this has been on Kickstarter for some time now. I think I started following you on there. I'm just kind of getting into reading comic books a little bit more again. I've been a lifelong comic book reader. I don't know about you, Tim. You read a lot of comics too. I know you have.
I have not recently, but moved on to other things. But I'm interested in some different stuff. I think we talked about on our last podcast about how the cost of keeping up with all of the Joneses, basically keeping up with all the episodes or issues, is cost prohibitive and time prohibitive usually. So if we're going to read something, it has to be something more what's the word? A little more unique and not just mainstream, I guess, right?
Yeah, we were
Worth
talking about
bothering
that
with.
the other day. I was mentioning to Tim, like when I was reading comic books really hardcore, I was getting, my superhero stuff, the big superhero comic book fan. And the thing that kind of split me off from that was you had all these big crossover events, the House of M and Final Crisis. And there was just, if you wanted to get the whole story, then all of a sudden you couldn't just buy Batman or Spider-Man.
Oh, I know.
You had to get every book in the whole thing. So I just eventually I thought I'm going to run out of money doing this. So, but what I do like is that more or less now, if I want to read a comic book, it's going to be something I've decided it's going to be more something that's of an independent variety, like what you're doing. And there's a great amount of these out there, and yours being one of them that I'm interested in. So I think the first thing I found is Alpha Dogs. I think I found Dime Store Detectives. And I got interested in that. And then you shot me a message over, I think it was Instagram or whatever. Yeah. And I wanted to buy, but so you made a special concession for me. So I got to thank you for this, so that I could get a physical copy of Dime Store Detectives. So I'm really
PDF
I'm
just
happy.
isn't the same. PDF just isn't the same, as having the comic in your hand. So, but I was happy to do it. I included it with Alpha Dogs 3 shipping to some of the comics to Canada. Anything more than that, the shipping is very expensive overseas. So, but you're definitely not going to find Alpha Dogs is definitely a very original comic. These dogs, even though they're dogs with superpowers, it's not some hokey, funny. It's very rooted in a serious tone. There's a lot of themes through the story. These dogs kind of act as children to a certain extent, and the story is kind of a cautionary tale where, the dog's owner, kind of like a parent, when they bring in this new boyfriend or new girlfriend in their lives, and they kind of push their kids aside, or even when, you know, they have this, kids have this dog and they get this puppy, and it's kind of the consequences and the pain that it causes the kids, or in this case the dogs, when Ina brings this new boyfriend and kind of pushes the dog aside, and it develops this tension between this dog Buck, who just thinks the world of his owner, like kids with their parents, and then she's kind of turned her back on him to a certain extent. So, but yeah, only this instead of, you know, tension, we've got mercenaries and a guy with a revenge plot in the story. So it's definitely very different, and people that have read it have really enjoyed it. The biggest issue, I'm sure you probably know, is with indie creators like myself, is just getting the word out there, because most people, it's like, why would I buy your comic when I can buy Superman, or I can buy a TNA comic, which seems to be so popular?
Yeah, that's it, and that's why we really wanted to talk to you, because I think that everyone knows we've got movies about all that stuff, but there's a whole bunch of genius stuff out there in the independent world, and it just needs a little bit of love to get out there. So I'm glad that we could talk to you. We'll probably have you back anytime you want to have another comic book that you want to talk about. We could talk about Dime Store Detectives, but as someone who knows, I tried to do my own comic book a few years ago, and it was back before we had all this wonderful social media and everything like that to connect us with people. And one of the things I know is that first off, it's a really hard thing to do by yourself. I mean, a novel or a screenplay, those are things that you can kind of go at alone. But a comic book is really a collaborative effort. And the part that I found difficult when I tried to do it was finding anybody around me who was willing to collaborate and kind of like, you know, take this project off with the heart that I wanted to do it. So tell us maybe a little bit about how you found your collaborators, who they are, and what it's like to work as a team like that.
Yeah, I mean, well, money talks. You know, you got to pay them. That's about the only way to get anybody to help you out is money, unless that eventually someone buys your comic and enjoys it and is willing to share. I have a few of those people, which is great. But yeah, basically, I just did a cold call over Facebook, writers seeking artists, and they answered. They're out of Argentina, Stone Tower Studios, and they've been terrific. The art is really good with Alpha Dogs, and the person that did Dime Store Detective, he's in Italy, and it's the reason you have to find foreign artists is American artists are very expensive. The dollar just goes further. So most people that you'll find, like myself, have hired overseas to do their artwork. So it was a cold call, and they were head and shoulders above everybody else that had, you know, answered and showed me samples. So we have a very good relationship, you know, but you know, you got to pay. You know, if you go the cheap route, you're not going to get as good of a product. So I definitely paid up, but for what you pay for most American artists, it's relatively cheap. But still, yeah, it's you're not going to make money doing this. It's for a love of it, and with the hopes of getting a publisher. That's my ultimate goal, is to send it out to some publishers. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, best of luck, man. We hope it goes well for you.
I
So
know.
the process
keep
for
on
it.
doing it. Now I don't know how many more I can do until I see some still where it's economically viable.
So what with Kickstarter, we haven't done. Tim and I have got a couple projects that we're working on, a book and everything like that, but we haven't really done anything over Kickstarter. We've batted it around a bit.
Yeah.
What's that process like? Is it
You're always
frustrating?
learning. Yeah. Oh no, Kickstarter makes it really easy. It's actually really easy. So that's the route I would go if I were you guys, because then, you know, even if you get a publisher, at least you hopefully your backers will absorb that cost to produce it. Of course, a book probably wouldn't be as bad, but a comic would be awfully. You know, they are expensive to make, especially if you're going to do it, you might as well do it right. You know, so. But yeah, no, Kickstarter's pretty. It's pretty easy. They streamlined it pretty good. It's just with Kickstarter, there's such a deluge now after COVID of people doing Kickstarters that for comics, and I assume for books too, and now a lot of mainstream creators are going to Kickstarter because Diamond Distribution, who distribute comics, well, they want 50% of it right there. So that's 50% you're taking a hit. And then obviously a comic book publisher, well, they want their, I'm assuming probably 35%. So the creator, and then you got to pay the artist. You're still responsible for paying the artist and the letterer and the colorist. So I mean, you really don't make that much money, even unless you have a pretty big comic book, pretty good fan base, So what they're doing is now they're funding on Kickstarter. Well, then they pay for the comic, and then everything else is money in their pocket. So you've got the mainstream creators, and now every Joe Schmo is doing something on Kickstarter, whether it be a comic book or whatever, because there's now an avenue, and it's a great thing to have. Kickstarter has made a lot of people who would have never ever made a comic book, able to afford to do it. So it's a great venue, but it is getting a little clogged. I mean, I can tell a big difference just from when the last time I released my comic book Kickstarter back in March, that there's been so many more people. So it's a thick field. So really, you got to just do what I do, annoy the piss out of everybody by messaging and advertising yourself on social media until they just want to mute you, and they can do that. I mean, you're going to make a few people annoyed. I get the occasional message, "Why are you bugging me? You don't know me." So, but they can just mute me or unlike me. So,
Well, hey man, I got you on our podcast, so it worked.
I know exactly. So it worked out.
Yeah. Well, we're hoping that you can find a little bit of an audience up here with, however, I don't know how many people listen to us. I don't even want to know, but maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20, but hopefully they buy comic books. So,
hey, hopefully.
I'm pretty sure that our audience is in the comic book
I think they are
in the comic book market. So,
and if they're not, they should be. They should be. So, what are some of your influences? Like when you were growing up reading comic books, as I'm sure you did, what were you reading? What kind of things?
Well, the guy on your friend Tim's shirt is one of my biggest influences. Wolverine,
shirt.
a la my main character, he can heal from most any wound. So
it's the
that
classic
was
Wolverine there. So,
not
the modern
that's
one.
the good. Yeah. The 80s and early 90s Wolverine is definitely the best by leaps and bounds. I liked him better when he was short. Now he's got to be 6 foot tall. So. Yeah, it's I don't read mainstream comics really anymore, to be honest. But what got me interested was, like most, I'm sure probably you guys too, was the X-Men cartoon of the 90s, early 90s.
Yeah.
That was a huge influence. Well, like I'm gonna guess at least like 70% of the comic writers in our age group, that was the thing. It was kind of like Star Wars, I think, for the kids of the late 70s. It's just such a huge influence because it was very adult themed for cartoon. It was the first, really. I mean, it was really groundbreaking. That and the Batman animated series, but I was Marvel guy, so that was the first big influence when it came to comic books. I was using my paper route money to go buy the old issues with Wolverine and Sabretooth. That was my thing. So that's really got me started in the comic books, and it just kind of grew. And I did the Marvel thing, and then when Onslaught came around, and it just was, it was the end, I think, for most of people, that I got out of it. And then when they started doing the Ultimate series with Brian Bendis and Mark Millar, that got me back into comics again. So, but ever since probably in the last few years, they've become so political, and with their wokeness, I don't even read them anymore. I pretty much just read the indies now. So I just bought at Brubaker's oh god, his noir series that's been out for a while now, but I just bought that. I'm gonna read that after I finish Nice House on the Lake, the new series by the guy that wrote Something is Killing the Children. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but indie. So I just do kind of indies now, and I support a lot of Kickstarter comics too.
So that's a good place, I guess, for people who want to get introduced to something that they haven't seen before, or new ideas, I guess. for me, I mean, I do like all those characters, Spider-Man and Batman and stuff like that, but we got them all in the movies now, and I think the comic
Yeah.
books maybe are kind of fading into the background a little bit more because they're owned by the big companies and everything like that. But this is where comic books to me have always been best in the indie medium. Big guys will always be around, but the things like I remember the events were probably more or less around the same age. I'm a late 70s guy myself. Tim, I think, is mid 70s, Tim.
He might be a little older, yeah.
But so that was to me, that was all the years that I was like, my formative comic book years was like the death of Superman and the Image comics,
Yep.
where all the guys broke away, and that was the biggest news of the day, and that was always where the most exciting stuff was for me. Like, it was all this new original stuff, and I think that spirit's kind of living on right now on the Kickstarter comics and on the indie scene, and that's more or less why I'm kind of getting back into that, because that original spirit and that kind of, I guess, hunger for the new stuff is out there, and
Well,
that's where
lack
people
of
find.
rehashing, right? The problem with the mainstream stuff is it's just the same story over and over and over,
Oh yeah. Oh,
and
exactly.
they
Yeah.
just flog it to death, and then they're afraid to take any risks. I think is the biggest
Yeah.
problem because they might not make enough money for their 4,000 person crew that created whatever project it is. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how they make any money now with all the people involved with the comic book and the fact that most mainstream comics are not doing all that great, comparatively speaking, to what they were. But the indie comics are just really taking off, and a lot of, I mean, I think they've taken a big piece of the pie. The Indiegogo and the Kickstarter market are really flourishing. So
Yeah, I know there's been I haven't really followed it too close, but I know there's been a few big campaigns out there for some indie comics that are like eye raising. So I don't know, I'm hoping the best that you can kind of get your word out there and maybe share some of that success. What else is there out there? What have you got? Do you got any other ideas coming up that you can talk about, or
yeah,
uh
the Dinosaur Detective series, that's an 8-issue limited series. Like I said, issue 1 was just funded, and if you missed issue 1, you can buy it with Alpha Dogs as an add-on. So my artist he's got 2 pages left, and he draws it all by hand, so it takes him longer than a lot of people that do it with computers nowadays. So, but there's only 2 pages left, and half the comic is in black and white anyway. So, Dinosaur Detective it's a supernatural noir. It's a very original story. It's kind of like, well, it's actually a lot similar to It. Like if you take Stephen King's It mixed with True Detective, I don't know if you're familiar with that HBO
yep.
limited series. And you combine them, then that's kind of Dinosaur Detective. And plus, if you include, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Dukes of Hazzard,
yes,
Yeah, yep.
like a really dark issue. I mean, episode of Dukes of Hazzard, you'll kind of get Dinosaur Detective. So now that I've totally confused you, let me explain the story. So,
okay. So who is Boss Hogg in this story? That's my only
no
question.
Boss Hog, just kind of a version of the Duke Boys. So it's in the same story format of Stephen King's It and True Detective. We go back and forth. In this case, it's the present day. We open up with this detective
Mhm.
named Donald McInerney. He comes into this crime scene in the Appalachian Mountains in Georgia, where this woman, the latest victim of the serial killer, has been put on display in kind of a Christ-like fashion, hanging from a tree. And she's been left on the burial grounds of where the detective's uncle and father buried multiple bodies back 40 years ago during the Moonshine Wars. And
Mhm.
what we do is go back and forth, and anything that's done in 1981 is in black and white, and everything that's in the present time is in color. And so we go back and forth. And what happened 40 years ago is this Mackinder family, they're the notorious moonshiners of the county, and where there was prohibition back there in the North Georgia area. So they've kind of been there are 4 generations of moonshiners. They drive around, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with a Plymouth Barracuda. It was a big muscle car
Yes.
back in the 70s. That's kind of, I wanted a car that kind of was this character in itself, kind of like Knight Rider and the General Lee. And so this brother and this cousin, they're kind of feared in the town. They're the moonshiners. They sell their bootleg whiskey. Well, this crew moves in. They're connected to the Dixie Mafia, and the Dixie Mafia, if you aren't aware, they were kind of what they were. They were a Southern mafia. They did the drug running, murder hire. They were hired guns, which these were real people. The Dixie Mafia, but in the story, this crew comes in that's connected to the Dixie Mafia and pushes the cousins out of the moonshine. They're going to take over. Well, they don't take kindly to it, and it ends up erupting this rivalry, this very bloody war between them. And in the middle here, this evil entity comes about, and I don't want to give anything away, but this evil entity is connected to this family. So fast forward 40 years, the son of the bootlegger, the Mackinder, the father, because there was the cousin and the brother, the son is now a detective, and the serial killer has left this body to get his attention. And there's an evil entity that was seemingly dormant, has come back into this detective's life and is somehow connected to the serial killer, connected to this cabal of cult that's going on kind of with the elites here. And now that I've really confused you guys, you'll have to buy issue 1. Well, I think you bought issue 1, didn't you? So you'll get it.
So it's a limited series, this one?
Yeah, it's going to be 8 issues.
Okay.
And it slowly unravels as it goes. And like I said, I don't want to give too much away, but it won't be as confusing as if you read the comic.
I've seen the sample pages, and everything looks amazing. It looks like it does have that cool noir story going on. It's very stylized, very stylish. Everyone did a pretty good job. So, I can't wait to read it.
I think you'll enjoy it.
I just can't wait. I'm excited to see some new stuff out there and get some new comics in my hands.
I love the noir genre, the LA Confidential, Maltese Falcon. I always wanted to tell that story, and I had kind of a half a story and the supernatural element to it because I was a big fan of it, and I was a big fan of True Detective, and I just love that story where you have this hero that, in this case, at the time, it's this little boy watching his father maybe defeat this entity. I try not to give too much away, but he believes in the impact that this event happens on this boy's life, kind of like with the kids from It and kind of like with True Detective, where they believe this thing is defeated and it just takes everything out of them, and they're picking up the pieces of their life and what they've learned, and then it comes back and how this bad guy or evil spirit has affected them throughout their lives, and it's kind of their redemption to come back and hopefully destroy it once and for all. So that's kind of where the story goes.
I'm hearing noir, horror,
detectives.
You're just speaking my language here.
Yeah,
you really are.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great genre that just isn't really touched on that much, and if it is, it's usually something that's been regurgitated 8,000 times. So I don't think there's been anything with this type of story with these moonshiners. This kind of like they're kind of like the Duke boys. They're feared, but they're not bad guys, and then they get into this war with this crew that are murderers and killers, and the impact that it has, and this evil entity that's connected to it all. So yeah, it's definitely original, and I think people will enjoy it.
So definitely not for kids.
No, I mean, I try not to do too much of the nudity. I'm not a big fan of the exploitive. I mean, there is a nude woman in the beginning, but it's her backside, and there's some swear words, but it's nothing exploitive, or I like to tell the story and not have to say, well, I hate
a broad audience.
Yeah, I like to have a broad audience. Kickstarter's kind of seemingly ruled by the TNA crowd. A lot of TNA
really?
comics. Yeah, and they do really good. And I just like, why don't you just watch a porn?
Yeah.
So many things seem to be ruled by that for unknown reasons. It's a distraction from the story.
I'm old fashioned, man. I'm in it for the story. That's it.
Yeah. Me as well. So yeah.
Well, where can everybody find what you're doing, John?
So if you go to Kickstarter and you just type in Alpha Dogs, it'll come right up. It's going to be in the comic section. And like I said, if you missed out on issue 1 and 2, then you can get those as an add-on. You can also get Dexter Detective as an add-on too. There's a really cool trailer you can see, and you can watch all 3 trailers. The trailers for Alpha Dogs are top notch. I mean, I'd put them against any trailer. Comic book trailer that you're going to see. It's really terrific. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the trailer at all for Alpha Dogs.
I definitely watched one for Dime Store Detectives, and I think I just jumped into Alpha Dogs after I saw the Dime Store Detective ones. But we'll go back and watch it, and we're going to link it up to this podcast once we get it all up there too. So we'll have a link for that.
Yeah, and you can get the PDFs for only $5. The comics are as low as $10. I've got a great homage comic to Hulk 181. And Tim, do you know what's famous about Hulk 181?
No. What is it?
It's the first appearance of Wolverine.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've got the cover is the homage to Hulk 181, so you have to check that out. And then my all-time favorite movie is The Empire Strikes Back. So Alpha Dogs has a homage cover to The Empire Strikes Back, which is awesome too. So there's 3 terrific covers on there. One of the rewards you can get, and if at times with inflation, as they were, you can buy all 3 PDFs of Alpha Dogs for only $12. So it's a pretty good deal, I think. And then another really cool reward I have on there is you can have a cartoon drawing of your dog by one of our artists at Stone Tower Studios. And they do a really great job. You can see some of the examples. That's a pretty cool reward. And the biggest get that I have is the artist of Stray Dogs. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the comic book Stray Dogs.
Nope,
No, I haven't heard of that one.
No, so yeah, a lot of people have. It's an Image comic. It came out last year. Think Hannibal Lecter meets Lady and the Tramp. As crazy as that is, it's a terrific comic. So it's about these dogs that a serial killer is murdering these women and taking their dogs because he meets them in a dog park, takes their dogs, and he kind of has this collection of dogs at his house. And I'm not going to tell you what he does with the dogs. I'll let you read the comic. It's a absolutely terrific comic and won a bunch of awards. It was the number 1 comic actually selling of last year, at least on the indie scene. I can't say mainstream, but definitely it was number 1 selling, but you should check it out. And anyway, so the artist who draws the dogs like Disney dogs, Lady and the Tramp, I just texted her and I said, "Hey, would you be willing to do sketch covers for my Alpha Dogs?" And she agreed, which was really, really cool. So she's doing sketch covers of my main character, Buck. And she did it for issue 2. And I don't know what she's going to do for issue 3, which character she's doing. I'm assuming Buck and maybe some others. I don't tell her what to do. I'm just happy she's doing it. But so yeah, you can go to Kickstarter and see some of the covers. I just posted on my Instagram some of the covers she did for issue 2 for the sketch covers, and they're really great. So,
so your Instagram is Alpha Dogs also?
Yeah, my Instagram is alpha_dogs_comic, and my Twitter is @RealAlphaDogs, and I'm on Facebook too, Jon Dexter. But if you Google Jon Dexter Alpha Dogs, you'll get a plethora of stuff.
All the links. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
so it looks like on Kickstarter, there's no way to actually find anything. Like you can find information about it, but it looks like the Kickstarter's over for Alpha Dogs entirely.
No. We're 2 weeks left of it.
Okay, because I was just there, and maybe I need somebody smarter than me to figure it out.
Just type in Alpha Dogs, and you should see if you put in Alpha Dogs in the comics. Now 1 and 2 are done, so that might have been, but it's Alpha Dogs 3. So if you go, you should be able to find Alpha Dogs 3 on there, and it'll take you to the live one. Or if you type in Jon Dexter, JONDEXTER. I'll come up and you'll see my campaigns, all my past campaigns, plus the top one should be the current campaign of Alpha Dogs 3. It's Alpha Dogs issue 3 with issues 1 and 2 catch-up tiers. So if you check that out, it'll be on there.
Beautiful.
But yeah,
that's
if you go to the one, if you just type in Alpha Dogs, you might get some of the old ones, but you might have
and
to put
that's
Alpha
so
Dogs
far that's
issue
all I've
3.
been able to find. But if I have any complaint about Kickstarter so far, it's that it's hard for somebody that doesn't know anything about it to figure out what's going on.
Try to type in my name, Jon Dexter, JonDexter, and it should come up on the search. I assume there's no other Jon Dexters on Kickstarter.
It says, "Oops, we could not find any results." Why
Do
is
you
it
know
not
what you're
giving
doing,
me?
Tim?
Well, I'm at Kickstarter.
Are you on Kickstarter? Are you on a
I'm at
Google search?
Kickstarter. No, I'm
I'm
Okay,
at
going to try it.
Kickstarter.
but if you
It could
you're on
be
the
because
Kickstarter page.
different parts of the world have different permissions and access to different things too sometimes.
Oh, really?
So who
Well, that's
knows?
surprising because I know you can buy Alpha Dogs anywhere in the world on PDF, so it
It could be
should
just
come
me.
up. That's surprising, but yeah,
I found it on my phone, John.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
it came right
okay.
up. So you got you're 110% backed.
let's try the phone.
Yeah,
Screw the laptop.
yeah,
Alpha
yeah,
Dogs issue 1 and 2. Yeah, you got there's a whole bunch on here.
yeah, yeah. The one that should be, I would assume, is at the top is Alpha Dogs 3 because it's
Now,
currently funding right now.
and I can see it up here, all stretch goals and everything like that. So
Okay, cool. Yeah, make sure you watch the trailer. It's pretty good. All 3 trailers are really great, and on
yeah.
the third 3, you can see all 3 of them. They do a really good job with them. I write the script, but they do all the hard work. So
Now, so you and I have, I guess, kind of a similar writing background because I started out with the screenwriting too,
okay.
and now we're into Tim and I are publishing our own, I guess, kind of autobiographical fiction. Tim, is that what we're saying?
We're already on
Autobiographical.
book 2.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
on book 2
cool.
of our own autobiographical fiction. So, I know
Is that new genre, autobiographical fiction?
it's like I guess it's autobiographical fiction, fictionalized, inspired by stories. I guess it would be,
Okay.
kind of
Yeah.
just insane stories of our work life. I
It's
guess it would
collected
be.
work stories is what it is. It might
Yeah.
not be
Okay.
necessarily our stories. So,
Oh, yeah.
but
That's a good.
they're fictionalized
Good
because if you put the original story out there, then lots of people would be mad.
I got you. I got you. That's cool.
So I'm familiar with the screenwriting process. It's a very visual form of writing, and comic books, I guess. How did you kind of find that whole process of switching over from like a screenplay to a comic book script, which is similar in some ways? Like I've tried to write them, but I have a tough time. Did you find it challenging, or was it kind of a natural spin over to that comic book
It
format?
was
And
pretty
what's different,
natural
maybe?
from. Not very much at all, really. You just don't have to put so much detail for the actors because you're the when it comes to comic book writing, I prefer it so much more because you're the director and the writer. So you're able to really be more specific with a comic book than with a screenplay. With a screenplay, it's so much more. I mean, page 8, you have to. The technique is very with a screenplay is very stringent. You have page 8, you have page 16, 25 is when Act 1 ends. Page 60 is when everything kind of turns. So it's a lot more technical aspect for a screenplay. And once you read Alpha Dogs, you'll see it's Alpha Dog. My writing for my comic book is very much in the tone of a screenplay anyway. So you'll definitely see that Alpha Dogs and Dexter Detective will easily lend themselves to a movie or a TV series. So, which fingers crossed, maybe that will happen down the road. we'll we'll see.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about before we go, or?
No, just just to check out the Kickstarter. It's if you're a big dog fan or a big fan of original comic books, I think you'd like Alpha Dogs.
All right. Well, we're gonna love it.
I hope
I'm
so.
busy pledging right now. So the trick is to click
Oh,
on your
right.
name at the first Kickstarter I was at because it doesn't really say, but they're sold out and there's nothing you can do there. So from a novice
Yeah,
point of view
because
to
I'll put,
Kickstarter.
yep,
So then if I
yep,
click on
because
your
yeah.
name, and then it'll show me all the projects you're working on, and one of them has a green bar and the other three don't. So then from that
Okay.
point, it's pretty easy to figure out which one to click. The one with the green bar, and then you can go straight to pledges, configure reward, which I'm doing right now. And yeah, I'm not
Oh,
going to get out
cool.
my
Well, I
credit card
appreciate
while we're on the podcast, though. But
it. Yeah, I can't remember if all of everything ships to Canada. I think it does, but don't quote me on it. Or you can always just get the PDF. I know for sure. I think certain ones ship to Canada,
it
but
says it
if they
does.
don't,
It says it does so far. So
cool, cool. Yeah, yeah.
shipping
I think I made
destination
because
Canada.
yeah, because I remember there was a couple people from Canada that wanted to back. One person was really adamant, and then he never backed the comic book. So I was like, okay, whatever. You'll get that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I did. And you made a special one for me, John. So I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah. No, I appreciate having me on and getting to give my little spiel. It's very that you'll find when you if you do a Kickstarter for yours, it's all about and you're doing it smart because a lot of people that are successful is first they build their audience through their podcast. So you've already got a built-in audience. There's someone that she just started doing her podcast show, and I didn't think the comic was really anything special, but because what it is, because there's so many people, it's all about a personal connection you have, and that's the number one thing when if you do a Kickstarter is that personal connection. So if you do a Kickstarter, you might want to do video with yours too. Possibly, it might be something to think about.
Yeah, I've had a couple. We've had a couple of requests for a YouTube show or
Yeah.
yeah, anything like that. We get the big one we get is our first book that Tim and I wrote together. We put it out there, and we get a lot of requests for. Do you have an audiobook? Do you have an audiobook? And we just had the old school written format. So we got to get with the times here. So we're going to do our next book. We're doing both books at the same time, audiobooks. So that's a
Okay.
new foray for us. So yeah, it's a creative process. But anyway, I guess what we'll do is we'll let you guys go here. And it was great to have you on, John. And
Yeah.
if
That's
you want
right.
to stick
Yeah.
around for a few minutes, we'll maybe just have follow up chats off the record.
Okay. So, yeah. Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Sure, if you got time for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I got time.
All right, folks. Well, it's been a slice, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, it's been a slice. Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Have a good one, guys.
You know what really ticks me off? It's comic books.